Hi, this is Ali Rango of littleguy.cgi.com. Today you're going to learn how to take a highly dense mesh like one of these two meshes that you see right here. You're going to learn how to take that dense mesh that is a million polygons, over a million polygons, and then turn that into a low poly mesh that is about 30,000 polygons. Can you tell from looking here which of the two is which? Retopology is useful, and actually it's more than useful. It is needed if you want to have detailed scopes and then be able to use those scopes in things like animation. As you work your way through this tutorial, there will be on-screen prompts that show you what keys I'm pressing. I'll also be explaining what keys I press, and as I explain to you what I'm doing, I not only will tell you what I'm doing, I'll try to tell you why I'm doing what I'm doing. So if you would like to learn how to retopologize a dragon or even other creatures similar to what you see right here, I think that you're going to really like this tutorial. If you like the videos on this channel, please hit the like button. Also, if you really like the videos, I would ask that you subscribe to the channel. When you hit that like button, you let the YouTube robots know that you like this video and that you would like to see more videos like this, and it helps the channel out, so thank you for that. If you're watching this channel, just by watching the channel, you're helping to support the channel, and I appreciate that. If you would like to support the channel even more and make it easier for me to make videos like this video that you're watching now, if you look to your upper right hand corner, if you click that button, you'll be able to go to my Patreon page and support me on Patreon. So if you do that, thanks again, and already thank you for watching this video. To be able to download the original dragon sculpt and use that scope to work along with this tutorial, if you go to littleguy.cgi.com and then go to assets, if you scroll down, you'll see dragon. If you click here, you'll be able to download the original dragon sculpt, and this will allow you to use that scope to work along with the tutorial. Okay, we're zooming in. I wrote the mouse wheel to zoom in. Okay, for this we can hold Alt, left click. Because we were holding Alt, we selected that entire edge loop. Now we press F to field, and I'm going to left click to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, then press A to totally deselect. Move my mouse to zoom out. Taking a look. And rolling the mouse to zoom in. Okay, we're on edge select still, so let's click here. Select those. That space there. Now wait a second. Let's deselect there. I'm looking at what we have here. We're on the mouse wheel to zoom in. This geometry's kind of bunched up, so we'll press G. Click here. I'm just pressing G and just moving my mouse. And what I'm doing now is as I'm thinking, I'm just stretching this geometry out. I'm going to vertex select, pressing G. We can lower down this geometry some to make it easy to work with. How can we do that? How can we quote unquote lower it down? You see, and basically what I'm talking about, see all these faces here? We have one face right there, right? So how do we lower this down? Well, one of the things we can do is we can click here. We can hold control, and I'm like aiming the mouse like that way, slightly, right? So I'm holding control, I right click. So this like points this way. So now I grab this edge, I kind of point it that way, hold control. See, it's like pointing that way now, right? So then with that, what I do is I click here to have both these edges selected, then I press F to fill. So now I just reduce the geometry down. And this is so I'm gonna hold control, press R, put a loop cut in here. So we're trying to get 4 faces, right? I'm gonna go to vertex select, click here, hold shift. While holding shift, I held shift so I select those 4 vertices. Press F to fill. Now I'll click here, press F to fill. For those vertices, I'm going to hold control, press R, put a loop cut right there. See, what I'm doing is I'm basically building this up to connect there. Try to connect there anyway. So what I'll do with this is I'll hold shift, select both of them, hold Alt, press M. This brings up our merge menu. I'll select at last. I'll click here, hold shift, hold Alt, press M. This brings up our merge menu. I'll select at last. I'll click here, hold shift, hold Alt, press M. Choose at last. We have all this geometry as well. Turn our manipulator. We'll go back to the move manipulator. Push this in. So what we're going to do here is click here. Hold shift, click there, press F to fill. Now we're going to try to see if this works. We're on edge select. We're going to hold Alt. We selected this entire edge loop that was selected there. We're holding shift as well as Alt. So now we have that whole thing, right? Now we're going to hold control, press F. This brings up our faces menu. We're going to select grid fill. And it didn't work. If you look underneath my mouse, not directly underneath, but about past start 1, past the timeline, you'll see verts and it says 17. We need 18 even verts to have this work. That's why that isn't working. So let's try it again. So let's go Alt here. And let's hold shift. Now let's hold control, press E. This brings up our edges menu. Let's select bridge edge loops. So left click to deselect. So let's hold Alt. Our verts say 11. Let's press C, deselect. Verts say 9. Let's hold control. They look even. That's why I'm like, okay, how is it? Let's go to vertex select. Push this in. Push this over. So we'll click here. Hold shift. Press F to fill. Let's go to edge select. Click here. Oh, I missed it, so I'm re-clicking. There we go. F, F. Okay. Let's hover here, hold control, press R. Right in the center, left click once, left click to lock that in. Now let's hold Alt. Our verts. Okay, so now we'll go to vertex select. We'll hold shift. Press F, fill. Holding shift. Pressing F to fill. Left click to deselect. Okay, so let's look back. This right here. What I'm thinking now is I'm like, okay, this is jumbled up. I'm trying to make it look less jumbled so I can see what's going on. Looks like we can put a, like it doesn't match here, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put a loop cut. So with this, I'm thinking I can take this, hold shift, press D, right click, basically move a vertex out in the space by itself, but then use this to make a face. Then press F to fill. See these 4 verts right here. Clicking to move the manipulator. Selecting these vertices here. Holding shift, selecting these 4 vertices here, pressing F to fill. Holding shift. Nope, left clicking off. Clicked. Now I'm holding shift. And I am pressing F to fill. I'm just pulling this out. Okay. I'm zooming back. Left clicking to deselect. Okay, one of the things we want to be careful of is we really don't want to work with the mirror modifier off because we want to be careful of the center line here. So we're going to turn the mirror modifier on. We're going to make sure that this center line here is good. So we have this here. It is not good. Deal with this. Clicking here to help rotate this here. So to deal with this, I'm going to turn off the mirror modifier, pull this vertex, over. So now that's dealt with. Turn the manipulator off and just straighten these out some. Same thing here. I'm just going to my left. The main reason I'm clicking that select is just to get the manipulator out of the way. These I just didn't like how they were curved like that. This really didn't seem like a need to have them curved like that, so straightening them out. I left click on nothingness to deselect. Click here, move tool, hold shift, it's down. Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Just checking out that center line. It's very important that it is good. Just pushing these vertices towards each other. I'm going to click here just to move the manipulator. So this is good here now. I'm holding control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. Holding shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Just at that center line. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. Click to the upper left just to move the manipulator out of the way. Going to the upper left to the move tool to bring the manipulator back. I'm going to press C for paint select to deselect these. So I can straighten out these vertices while they're by themselves. I'm going to hold shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. I'll click here, go to the upper left to move the manipulator out of the way. Go back to the upper left. Select the move tool again. Click here. Let's go to face select. Actually, edge select. I'm gonna hold Alt and press S to scale. As strange as this looks, I am trying to make it easier for us to see, to work with later on. I'm going to go to vertex select. This in. I just want this to be clearly visible. I'll hold control. So I click here, I hold control, use the shortest path. Push this down. Left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, there's some easy areas of mesh that we can fill in, that we can deal with, like right here. So when we say, I'm going to left click here so I can rotate off this vertex. What we can do here is we can go to edge select. When I say here, I'm talking about this space here, right? We hold Alt, and then we look to our lower right, look underneath my mouse, you'll see a 1, a 240, then you'll see verts to say 9, right? If we have even verts, we can use grid fill, which will fill in an area like this for us. So we need to get one more vertex. The way we can do that is by holding control, pressing R, and a left click, move this over like that. So now when I hold Alt, left click here, and you look underneath my mouse, or yeah, you can see that 1, 240, see there's 10 verts. So with this selected, now what we can do is I can hold Control, press F. This brings up our faces menu. Then we can choose grid fill, and that area is just nicely filled in for us. Okay, so we have this area here. So we'll do the same thing. We're on edge select. We'll hold Alt, click here. We look beneath my mouse. There's a 1, 240. There's the verts that say 10, slash 982. So it says verts colon 10 slash 982. So same thing. We'll hold Control, press F. This brings up our faces menu. We'll select grid fill. And there we go again. Filled in for us. That area by Blender. So that's nice. Then I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, we can take care of some of the easier areas. So we have like this right here. So we can see we have right here this. So let's hold Control, press R. Put a loop cut in, hold Control, press R, put a loop cut in, left click to deselect, left click on nothingness to deselect hopefully everything. So we're in edge select. Let's hold Alt, click on that edge, which lets us select the entire loop. I look down underneath my 1, do 40, the verts colon 8 slash 996. It's even, so we should be able to hold Control, press F. So we use our faces menu, then select grid fill, and that's filled in for us. So we'll left click to deselect. Areas like this are very easy, so we can just hold Alt, press F to fill. Here, Alt, F to fill. We'll hold Alt, click here, F to fill, because it's only 4 vertices. Alt, F to fill. Alt, F to fill. Hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. So we'll continue on. We should be able to go right down here. I think we'll hold Alt, F to fill, hold Alt, F to fill, hold Alt, yep, F to fill, Alt, F to fill, Alt, F to fill, Alt, F to fill, Alt, F to fill. I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Hold them in the mouse button, take a look. Coming along. Okay, so what we want to do here is to connect this stuff here. We want to see if we can have the flow keep going, so I'll click here and makes it easier for me to move. So this right here, what's going on here? So this is making things slightly difficult to see. We'll pull that to the side. I'm like, what? Trying to see what this is. Let me go to phase select. Okay, I can see it from that side. I press X, bring it to the delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Just taking a look. Let's start connecting things. We'll work from there. If things look not quite right, we can always go back. So let's, oops, hold shift, click here, let's press F to fill. Let's hold control, press R, left click once, I'll move that up. Hold shift, press F to fill. I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, hold them in the mouse button, I take a look. Hold shift, press F to fill. Left click on nothingness to deselect. Just thinking as I'm looking here. Sometimes when you're sitting there, you're trying to figure out what to do. Figure out things that look fairly easy. Sometimes opportunities open up in other places. So like right here, right? We can hold shift. And that still lets us keep our progress going forward. I just selected those three edges, press F to fill, left click on nothingness to deselect. Click here. Thinking. Okay, let's make things easier for us to work. We're gonna go to face select, hover here. Well, I hovered here and I pressed L. And then we'll press H to hide that for this leg. We'll hold Alt. We'll press H to hide, then we'll hover here, then press L, and then H to hide that. Hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. We can connect this section right to here, except this is in the way. So let's make it easy for ourselves for this. And we'll select this edge. We'll press X to bring up our delete menu. Then we'll choose dissolve edges. And dissolve edges takes away the edge without causing a lot of changes in the geometry around it. So we'll hold Alt. Select it. We could have just held Shift there. I'm going to press X to bring up our edges menu. We're going to select dissolve edges. Now with that done, with edge select still on, we'll select here, hold Shift, select here as well as here. Let go of Shift, and then we'll press F to fill and left click to deselect. Okay, when I roll the mouse wheel back, we're on edge select, we'll left click here, hold Shift. We selected those three edges. Now we'll press F to fill. I'll left click to deselect. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button and take a look. Let's go to vertex select. Let's click here, hold control, right click. Let's see if we can we select this edge here and then press F, Almost. We'll hold shift. Hold shift. And press F to fill in that geometry there. We'll then left click to deselect. We can click here, hold shift, click here, and then press F to fill. Let's go to vertex select. Let's push this down. It's here. Thinking right now I'm trying to just see right here. Geometry that was connected to the leg. I think we're gonna do. I'm gonna face select. Let's click here, hold shift, hold Alt, press M, choose at last, click here, hold shift, hold Alt, press M, choose at last. Let's, sometimes you can get stuck, so it's like, I would say, you know, move and then come back. So we select those edges, we press F to fill, click this edge, manipulator's in the way. So this is not for faces, however, we can solve that by going Control R, for vertices I meant to say. Yes, we click here, press F to fill. We still have this that is not for faces. But we can hold Control, press R. Can we put a loop cut here? It's kind of strange. Let's bring back the leg, hold Alt, press H. Left click on nothingness to deselect. Let's see if we can select here, hold shift. We can fill this in. Then we're stuck with this here. I'm going to fill this in for now. That's 4 phases, okay. As far as the wings, we'll hover over the wings, we'll press L, we'll press H, we'll hide them for now, we'll come back to them later on. Gonna hold Control, press R, left click once, move that to the side. So put a loop cut there. I'm gonna click here, hold Shift, and press F to fill. I'm gonna left click to lock that in, or left click to deselect. I'm gonna hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Click here, hold Shift, press F to fill. Hover here, hold Control, press R to put a loop cut in, left click once. Well, not sure why I left clicked. We're going to press F to fill. Let's hold Control, press R. Left click once, left click a second time to lock in. Click here, press F to fill. We'll click here, 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 here. F to fill. And we're doing that because we're going to come back for the wings later on. We're just trying to keep moving forward. If you're wondering why we're not using snapping right now, it's because most of our geometry is in place. We're going to use a shrink wrap modifier later on. It should help us as far as dealing with. I'm going to hold Alt here. As far as making things snap how they should later on. So I extrude it there. I extrude it again. I'm pushing this in. We have 10 verts there, so we're gonna, and I'm looking down beneath my mouse. There's the 1, 240. See where it says verts colon 10 / 1, comma 050. Means we can use grid fill, or should be able to use grid fill. We'll hold Control, press F, brings up our faces menu. We'll then select grid fill. Then we'll left click to deselect. Hold the mouse button to rotate. Go to vertex select, we'll click here, hold Shift, there we go. We'll press F to fill. We'll go to edge select. We'll hold Alt. What the heck? Okay, we'll use the shortest path. Okay, it didn't quite work how I wanted. So we have 9 verts. So I'm not going to use grid fill there, so we'll just click here. Well, we held Shift, selected those 3 edges. We'll fill that. We'll select here, press F to fill that. Hold Control, press R. Press F to fill that. We're selecting these edges here. Then we're pressing F to fill that. We're going to left click to lock that in. Okay, I'm going to hold Alt, then press H to bring the wings back. And I think what we're going to do is, there's multiple ways to do things like this. We're going to try to do what I think is the easiest way, which is here's the area here. So the area is covering right here. So let's delete this. Let's take this area here. Let's let's delete this. Let's hold control, press R. I'm thinking about just the movement. So there's a edge here, edge here, edge here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to press E to extrude, right click, take our move tool, bring this over. We're going to flatten this out. We're pressing S to scale on the X axis, 0. This is kind of strange here. Just the way it's set up. I know that's difficult to see. I apologize. So what we want to do is, let's see how many verts this is. Zoom it back. Let's hold, let's go to edge select, hold Alt, press E to extrude, press R to rotate, that's the scale, E to extrude, push this over, R to rotate. Back. Face select, take this away, press X to bring up our delete menu, choose faces to delete. Go to edge select, let's hold Alt. We have 9 verts there. We have 6 verts here. Click here. By 9 verts. 6 verts. Okay. Let's click here. Hold Shift. Hold Control. Press E. This brings up our edges menu. We'll choose Bridge Edge Loops. Let's hold Control. We put a loop cut in. I wrote once, so now we have another edge loop. So select here, and not that thick on it. Just these two. Control E. Bridge edge loops. Select here. Control E. Bridge edge loops. Selected all those edges. I'm going to press F to fill. Left click to deselect. Hold the mouse button to rotate. turn off mirrors so we can see what's going on. Can we hold control, press R, and put a loop cut? Yes, we can. So select here, press F to fill. Click here, press F to fill, and select these edges here, and then press F to fill. I'm gonna hold Alt, press A to deselect. I'm gonna hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'll left click on nothingness. Well, we already deselected. Kind of like doing that. It makes me feel certain about things. When I turn the mirror back on, okay, we have edge select on. Let's hold Alt. Let's left click here. Let's press X. This brings up our dissolve edges menu. Let's our edges menu. We're going to choose dissolve edges. Okay, what we're going to do now is hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. We're going to select. I'm going to face select. We'll press C for paint select. We'll click here. Press the middle mouse button to deselect there. I'll press S to scale and okay, I'm not going to do that. So what we're going to do is press E to extrude this up. About here. Press E to extrude again. And we are going to click here, turn our move back on, so we use our manipulator. Click. Okay. We'll select this. Manipulator. Press E to extrude. Bring this up. Make sure that's inside. Go to these edges here and pull them out some. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to hold Control, press R. Put a loop cut there. We'll hold Control, press R, put a loop cut here. Hold Control, press R to put a loop cut there. And we're going to hold Control as well as the middle mouse button. We'll Shift. Let's go to, for our transform, we'll change this to normal. That's not. Okay, we'll just pull it out like this. And it being these vertex, not these edges, which are connected to the wing. Another loop cut here. Okay, what we're going to do is pan up, hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. We're going to go to vertex select. We're going to click a vertex, hold shift, press D, right click, turn. We're going to turn on snapping. Now we're going to turn off snapping. And now we're going to do kind of what we did before. One vertex on the corner, 3 on top, another vertex in the corner, 3 in the bottom. So we're going to go to front view. There we go. And we're going to just hold control, where we're just right clicking. Here's the corner vertex. 1, 2, 3. Connect to the corner. Press F to fill. And now we're going to hold control, press L. Move this down. I'm going to scale this up like that. Oops. That's interesting. Alright, so now we aim this how it's going to be. We're thinking about when we're going to turn snapping on. Alright, we're about to turn snapping on. Snapping is on. So now we're going to turn off the manipulator. We're going to hold control as we push in, hold the middle mouse, and we're going to press G. Now as we move each vertex, it will snap to mesh underneath. We'll hold the view, we can see what's going on. We'll press G. Alright, so we'll press L. Hold shift, press D, right click, turn off snapping, pull this over, hold shift D, right click, pull this over, let's go to, that's interesting, front view. Shift D, right click, pull that over. That's, I'm not sure why it's doing that. Anyway, we'll hold control, press L. Just like before, we're gonna turn on snapping, and as we move, we don't need the manipulator here, so we're pressing G, moving, pressing G, moving, and when we move, that movement makes our vertex snap. Open the mouse button to see, so then we make sure we have our vertices in view. We click, move. Same thing here. Okay, so now that we have that, what we're going to do is connect these vertices together, similar to what you see me doing here. Pressing F to fill. 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 And I'll left click to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is hold the middle mouse button. We're going to go to Edge Select. I'm going to hold Alt, hold Shift, hold Alt, still holding Shift as I'm clicking these edges. Letting go of Shift and Alt so I can rotate the view, holding Shift and Alt again. Now I'm letting go of them. I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to turn off the snapping. I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm going to left click. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis 0. Flatten these out, then left click to lock that scale in. Okay, we're gonna hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm gonna hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. We're gonna turn on the proportional editing tool. We're gonna click and then turn on connected only. Okay, I'm gonna hold Alt. I'm gonna press G because the connected portion of the connected only is on. This isn't affected by our circle of influence. Okay, I'm gonna hold the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm gonna hover here, press L, go to Mesh, Normals, flip outside, left click to lock that in. I'm gonna hold Alt, press G, and press E. Bring this out like this. I'm gonna press S to scale. I'm gonna hold Control, press F, then choose Grid Fill. Go. I'm gonna click here, hold Alt, press E, bring this out, press out to there, hold Control, press F, oops, Control, press F, there we go. It's good. Press G to move that to the side. Let's take this one, hold Alt, press G, E to extrude. E to extrude. I'm just moving the camera. I'm pressing G to move. Just to, move that to where I want it to be. I'm going to hold Control, press F, select Grid Fill. Do the same thing here. Let's hold Alt, press G, press S to scale, hold Alt, S to scale. Okay, well, hold Alt, press G, press G, hold Alt, press G, hold Alt, press G, hold Control, press F, select grid fill, then left click to deselect. Okay, what we want to do now is reduce this geometry so that we can connect up here. So the way we can do that is, first thing we'll do is we'll go for the vertices in between the fingers. We'll hold Alt, press M, select at center. Alt, press M, select at center, and you pretty much, this is something you'll see often when working with dealing with fingers. Okay, so now we'll go to edge select. We'll click here. Shift, Control in the middle mouse button, pan. Hold Control, select there. We're going to press E to extrude. We want snapping on for this, so we'll press G. So click here. Oops. Turn off this proportional editing tool. This here. Don't want that. That's where snapping can get indeed frustrating. I'm gonna hold Alt, press S to scale on the Y-axis 0. Just trying to flatten it out, didn't quite work. This geometry here still needs to be reduced more, so we'll go to vertex select. Click here, hold Shift, hold Alt, press M, select at center. Click here, hold Shift, hold Alt, press M, select at center. Click here, hold Shift, hold Alt, press M, select at center. Okay, now we'll click here while holding Shift, Alt M at center, Alt M at center, Alt M at center. Oops. Alt M at center. So let's hover here, press L. Let's go to face select. Press H to hide that geometry for now. Now left click on nothingness to deselect. vertex select. I'll press C for paint select to try. Let's press Z, go to wireframe. Z solid. It's frustrating. Okay, we'll hide that since it's getting in the way. It was refusing to cooperate. Let's turn off snapping. We'll use the shortest path. Select all this. Press E to extrude. Right click. Do the move tool. Pull this back. Press S to scale. Hold them in the mouse button to rotate. Press. Turn snapping back on. Press G to get that to snap. Similar deal. Select these. Hold Alt. Press that center. Select these. Hold Alt M. Choose at center. These. Alt M at center. Alt M at center, just doing the same thing, continuing on. Alt M at center, Alt M at center. Left click to deselect. I'm gonna hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Let's click here, hold Control. Pull this back more. That's the scale some. Click here, hold Alt, press M, choose at center. Click here, hold Alt, choose at center. Alt M at center. Alt M at center. Alt M at center. Alt M at center. Left click to deselect. You want to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Okay. This is interesting. Right click, turn the snapping off. Not sure what happened here. But we'll just fill this in. Alt M at center. Let's see what happened here. This vertex there is all the way that snapping can get you. Let's try the poly build brush here. We'll click on here. Click back on the select. So we'll click here. We'll press F to fill. Left click to lock in. Hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom out. Click here. Press the move tool. Just back some. Actually, before we do that, we're going to go to our select tool, and we are going to press Z, go to wireframe, go to face select, press C to select all of this geometry here, press Z, go to solid view, C. Now we're going to press Shift D, right click, bring back our manipulator, push this straight back like this, and left click to deselect. Okay, I'm holding the middle mouse button, taking a look. So we'll turn on snapping. Let's click here, edge select. Click here, we'll go to the left to turn off the manipulator. We'll hold Shift, select here, hold Control, press E. We'll select bridge edge loops. Well, I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to go to vertex select. I'm going to turn off snapping. Hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold Shift, hold Alt, press M, select at center. Hold Shift, Alt M, select at center. I hold Control, press R, put a loop cut here, hold Shift, press F to fill, hold Control, press R, tag on it here, I should put a loop cut here. Let's Control R to put a loop cut in there. F the fill. Control R. Control R. F the fill. Yeah. Shift, hold Alt, press M at center. Yeah. F2 fill, then left click to deselect. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button. Click here. I know that this is coming out a decent amount of distance. I'm going to turn snapping on. I'm going to press G. So now I'm going to do the same thing here. Press G. You can see that this here is coming out a decent amount. I'm going to press G. Hold Controls wasn't in the mouse button. Left click to deselect, C for paint select. Press G, just getting that to snap. No, left click to deselect. Taking a look. I'm going to go to face select, hold Alt, select here, press H, hover here, press L, then press H to hide. I'm holding the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold them the mouse button to rotate. Let's edge select and select these 4 edges, then these 4 edges. Then hold Control, press E, then select Bridge Edge Loops, then left click to deselect. I'm going to hold them the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Alt, press M. I did that because I want to put a loop cut here. I want that to go all the way up. So now I'm going to go to face select, hold Alt, press H, hover here, press L, then press H to hide that. Okay, I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click, well, I'm going to go to edge select. Click here. Click here. Hold Control, press E, select Bridge Edge Loops, then left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here. Hold Shift, not there, here. I'm going to hold Control, press E, select Bridge Edge Loops, left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button, rotate the view. I'm going to hover here, hold Control, press R, left click once. Because I left click once, I can move that loop cut, left click a second time to lock in, left click to deselect. So I left clicked on nothingness to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Click here, hold shift. Not there. Press F to fill. Not there. F to fill. Hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. Left click to deselect. I'm gonna hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Hold control to put a loop cut in. Click here. Press G. Click here. Press G. Click here. I'm going to hold control for the shortest path. Press G. I'm going to left click, hold Alt, press H to bring back the other geometry. Okay, now with us looking at the other geometry, let's turn off snapping. Let's press C. Let's go to face select. Let's try to reroute some of the geometry here. Right click, get a paint select. Press X to bring up the delete menu, then choose faces to delete. We'll turn snapping back on. Turn off mirror temporarily. Let's hold control, put a loop cut here. Well, let's go to vertex select. Actually, you know what? Let's use the poly build brush. So we'll click here. Yeah. Click here, then press F to fill. Left click to deselect. Let's go back to poly build. Click here. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to left click and drag in the corner using the poly build tool. We're then going to go to the select tool. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button. I'm going to hold shift. Select these vertices, press F to fill. Select these vertices, press F to fill. These ones, F to fill. Left click to lock in. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here, hold shift, hold Alt, press M, choose at center. I'm going to do that to a bunch of these vertices here. Pretty much doing the same thing. Yep. Alt M at center. Hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here, hold control. There we go. Oh, okay, here we go. Hold control. Hold control, press R. Press F to fill. Select these four vertices, F to fill. Control R. These four vertices, F to fill. F to fill. Left click to deselect. put a loop cut here. I'm gonna hold control, press R, left click once, left click a second time to lock that in. I'll click, go to edge select. Select here and press G to get that to snap. Okay. Come back, press C. Select this, press X, choose faces to delete. Faces to delete. How I get it. Next faces to delete. That was interesting. So I wanted to fill that geometry in because I wanted to keep moving forward, and I realized that we could come back. It looked very strange, so it's easier, seems easier anyway, to now that we have the other part connected, to just redo some of that geometry there. So let's see, we have this, a loop cut here. Have the fill. Have the fill. I'm gonna turn off snapping. We'll turn snap, keep it on. Oh, okay. Then again. Look at that. Okay, we'll turn off snapping. We'll go to vertex select. Hold control. Sometimes you can make like a diamond shape. That's what I'm. So it's four vertices, but they're basically in a diamond shape. Don't want to do that right there. go to face select, press H, select that, press H to hide. We'll go to edge, select, E to extrude, right click. That's the scale. It's up. Connect this to here. Alt M at center. Click here. Fill. Control R. Fill that. Fill that. Control R. Fill that. Click here, hold Alt, press M, choose that center. Fill that. Put a loop cut here. Fill that. I'm just trying to push through, and I'm like, okay, it's still not optimal. We can, if we choose, we can come back. I'm gonna hold Alt H. I'm gonna put this loop cut here. Just so this matches up. Edge select. Press F to fill. F to fill. Left click to lock in. Okay, I'm gonna roll my mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm gonna hold Shift as well as the, well, there we go. Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. We're gonna turn it back on our mirror modifier. Taking a look. Okay, what we're going to do now is hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. We're actually going to go to the upper left, go to object mode. We're going to hide our main retopology mesh. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to bring in a cylinder. So I'm going to hold Shift and then right click, and that makes our 3D cursor jump to this spot right here. That's important because in Blender, where the 3D cursor is at, is where your objects tend to come into Blender at. So we're going to hold Shift, press A. This brings up our Add To menu. We're then going to go to Cylinder. This menu pops up over here. We can change the options for our cylinder. We're going to set the vertices to 12. We can press Enter to lock that in. We're then going to go to Cap Fill Ingon, and we're going to set this for 2. Set this to nothing. And I'm going to left click over here to lock that in. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold control to zoom in, hold shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to go to the upper left. I'm going to go to edit mode. We have edge select on. That's good because we're going to hold alt. We're going to left click here. While holding alt, we were able to select that entire loop. I'm going to hold control, then hold control, press F, and then I'm going to select grid fill. Then we're going to left click to get off that grid fill. Okay, now we're going to press A. We're going to press S to scale this down. And now this is basically we're setting up to retopologize this right here. Let's press R to rotate on the Z axis. Doing that just so that these loops can, I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z axis, can generally be facing backwards. Holding the mouse button to rotate, pushing this over. I press S to scale. And we want that to be inside. We're going to go to our right view. I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. If you look to the upper left, you can see we're in orthographic view, which is where we want to be at. I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. We can go to wireframe mode. Now we can actually see our cylinder. We're going to hold shift, press D, right click. Shift D, right click. So that's one thing. Once we shift D, right click, we're going to keep doing this. Shift D, right click. Or to rotate, Shift D, right click. Because we're in orthographic mode, hopefully this inside of the shape here. If you want to check where you're at, press A, you can see everything. So I'm going to hover here, press L, I'm going to hold Shift D. Okay, we're gonna continue on. Hold Shift, press D, right click. R to rotate. Shift D, right click. Shift D, right click. We're gonna rotate. We want that top to be rotated towards the top of the shape there. Shift D, right click. A speck or something moving there. Let's see what that is. Shift B. Not sure what that is. Press X. Vertices to delete. I did Shift B to do a zoom box is what I did. Shift D. And I zoomed in like that. I'm just slightly rotating, so the top of this is aimed towards the top of that. Hold Shift D. It's Shift D. Not sure what I was just saying. R to rotate. Hold Shift, press D. No, I'm sorry. Shift, middle mouse button. Shift D now. Slight rotation to match. Shift D. Slight rotation. Hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Shift D. Shift D. Shift D. Shift D. And I right click. Or to rotate. Rotate some more. Okay, so what we're going to do now is press Z. Go back to solid view. We want those shapes to be inside. A lot of them almost are. L. I'm gonna hold Alt, press A just to make sure I deselect instead of just the normal left click on nothingness. Alt A. Over here, L. Oh, see, I didn't deselect there. Alt A. L. So now I'll hold Alt A so I know I'm deselected. Press L. Alt A. L. Alt A. L. Then move. Alt A. So I'm holding Shift to take a look. Just using fine selection by holding Shift. I'm gonna hold Alt A just to make sure I'm not selected on anything. I'm gonna press L. Move that inside. Alt A. L. Move that inside. L. Move that inside. Alt A. L. Move that inside. Okay, I can see here this sticking out some. Alt A, L. Very slightly, this is coming out. Alt A. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to rotate the view. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to object mode. So this is our cylinder here. So we started with a cylinder, so it's currently named cylinder, and you can see all of the different placements of it there. Okay, so we're going to click with this add modifier. We're going to go to shrink wrap. And then for shrink wrap, where we see nearest surface point, we're going to set this to project. It should be good like this. And then we need to go to our sphere, which is our drag and mesh. Click this arrow to turn that back on. And then we're going to go to target, select this as a target. So we see some issues up there. So now let's go into edit mode. Let's go to our wireframe. Let's press A to select everything. Let's click this, looks like a triangle here. So these did fairly decent. Some issues here. So hopefully we'll be able to deal with these things mainly by just scaling, moving. So I'm going to hold Shift, press B. We're going to draw a zoom box to zoom in. So if we rotate this, let's see what happens. Then scale it. There we go. So let's hold Alt, press A. Well, we need to press A to select everything. So we got this up here. Okay, so we're gonna press L. Some of theirs being affected, which is kind of interesting. So just by scaling it down, that dealt with that. When I said that dealt with that, what I meant was the scaling, fixed the issue. So let's see if it does the same thing here. Hover here. Press S to scale. S to scale. This will try rotating. Scaling, let's try scaling on the Z-axis. So it's this 1 point here. Let's see if we can... That's interesting. Okay, for the most part, looks like that... Well... Let's see what's going on with this next piece here. Press S to scale. Okay. Oops, not that. This. Let's try rotating it. There we go. Okay, I'm going to press A so we can see. So we'll press L, R to rotate. Oops, not that. Press scale, good. Alt A. L. And look at that. Rotating, did that. Left click on nothingness to deselect. Then I want to go back to solid view. Okay, so let's go back to object mode on our upper left. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply the shrink wrap. Click here. Taking a look at these pieces by themselves. So we'll hold Alt, press H. That brought back everything. We're not going to use this. Let's get rid of that. We have let's hide this. Just pressing H to hide, by the way. And on some of these pieces here, we'll hold Shift, press H, which means we hide everything but this. Go to Edit Mode, and we will select two vertices. Press O to turn on proportional editing. Make sure it's set for connected, which it is. I'm gonna reselect that. Press O. Just push this over some. The ones that cause a lot of problems, we'll just delete them. Or if we can do a quick fix, I'm going to press O to turn off proportional editing. We can do that. Stuff here probably cause issues. We're not I selected that. We're going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, let's hold Alt, press H. Okay, wait a sec. Oh, we're in edit mode, alright. Now we'll press Alt H to bring back everything. Okay, we're gonna select this, press H to hide that. We're gonna click on our cylinder, our sphere, which is our dragon mesh. We're gonna click here, hold shift. While holding shift, left click here, hold control, then press J. And what that did was that made these two pieces join together. Okay, what we're going to do is go to our upper left, go to edit mode. And you see how we have these things hovering in the air? We're going to go to edge select, hold Alt. And let's go to transform, change this to normal. Just grab that edge. Just push that edge down. So I'm just pushing these edges down, or trying to push them along the basic setting of the what they are lined up to be with. Okay, so that normal is not working out. Go back to global. Interesting. Alt. So we push down, and then we want to not be careful. You want to kind of push towards the center at the bottom. Be careful when you do it, because of the mirror modifier. It's better to not cause issues with it. Push down. We're gonna have to push slightly towards itself. Something in the back or better, as far as not being so high up in the air. So I'm just selecting the edge, pushing down, and pushing it slightly towards itself. Let's come out of here. And our plane is our... Okay, yeah, so see how this is, they're angled like this way. I remember when I made this, so we'll go back to edit mode. Yeah, retopology is like other things, the more time you put into it, you'll get better results. That's logical. Okay, so this is here. So when I say here, my thinking is this is going into the body. I can't see the bottom, so I can hold Shift, press H to hide everything but this, and then I can grab the bottom. Try to set it up somewhat like it originally was. I'll hold Alt H to bring everything else back. I'll roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. Some of these ones, we'll actually do is press L. We'll go to right view. Actually push them. That's interesting. We're going to rotate on the Z-axis. That center line. Gotta be careful. Or rotate on the Z-axis. If you hold Shift, you'll get fine movement. That's still that center line. You can turn off clipping. Things might change fairly significantly in the next step. I'm rolling my mouse wheel to shrink my area of influence. I'm gonna hover here, press L. Okay, I'm gonna make this bigger. Oh, there's that center line. That's the scale on the X-axis. So when I left-click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to object mode. Hold them in the mouse button to zoom back. We're going to go to our sphere, which is our dragon mesh. You can rename this dragon mesh to make it clearer. We have our mirror modifier on, right? We're going to add to our retopology mesh, which is the plane. You could rename this as well just by double clicking this. You're going to click the arrow. You're then going to click subdivision surface. And then after that subdivision surface, you're going to add a shrink wrap modifier. So you're going to click the arrow, select shrink wrap, roll down. Okay, now with that done, you're going to click, you can click this triangular looking shape here. You want to make sure that your sphere is selectable, and it is. So then we're going to click and then select our dragon mesh. Okay, one of the things we want to do is we want to go to edit mode. Let's turn on, looks like a triangle here. We're going to go to vertex select. Press A to select all of our vertices. There used to be a thing in Blender called remove doubles. That's now gone. So now in its place, you're going to go to mesh. You're going to go down to cleanup. And then you're going to go to merge by distance. So you'll left click here. If you look down there at the bottom of the screen, you'll see remove 0 vertices. What's new to this replacement for remove vertices is this merge distance. You can work with this to have vertices merge with each other. You can also choose how you're going to work from this setting here. So we want to look at our mesh. There tends to be issues here, and there is now as well. This will cause you all kinds of stress right here, right? So you're going to click the monitor to get that to not show. Looks like a monitor to me anyway. For us to get the detail of the sculpted mesh, the most detail we can, we need to have UVs, and the easier we can make things as far as UVs, it makes it easier for us. So what we're going to do is we are going to press C for paint select, and we're going to select this problem area here on the bottom. We're going to right click, and then what we're going to do is we are going to go to here to our object data. We're going to go to vertex groups. We're going to make a new vertex group. We'll leave it just saying group for now. We'll assign it, so we'll select assign. So if I left click off of this, right, left click on nothingness to deselect, and then I click select, we can reselect that group. Okay, along with that, what we can do is I'm going to go to object mode. We can go back to our modifiers, and then we have our shrink wrap modifier will turn on what looks like a monitor. Here's this issue here, right? Hopefully this works. We have our vertex group. We're going to click here. Our vertex group select, I should say. We're going to select group. And right now, this is only being applied. This being shrink wrap only to here. We're going to click this invert button. So now we don't have that there. So now when we go back to edit mode, we don't have that issue going on. So I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Hold shift as well as the middle mouse button. Just taking a look. Just checking up here to see how this is going out, to make sure that this isn't having issues where there's vertices crossing over. This right here is left blank, by the way, because the mirror modifier will grab this. That's why that's blank right now. Okay, we're gonna, for these here, we're gonna go to edge select. There we go. I'm just gonna, oops, not, we don't want that proportional editing on. So it's off, so I'm just trying to push this basically into the body. And it looks like the subdivision surface is helping us out as far as that. Alt. Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan the view. Look. Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Just pushing this down. Pushing that down. Alt. Pushing that down. I'm gonna hold Alt, press A to deselect. Hold the middle mouse button and just take a look. Pushing that down. Left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, we still have edge select on. I'm gonna hold Alt, just move these edges. Hold Alt. Move that edge. Move that edge. Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Hold Alt. Move that edge. Left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel back. Object mode. I'm going to right click, select shade smooth. See the wings here? I would like for this to be more prominent. So I'm going to go to the shrink wrap, turn that off. Turn off the subdivision surface. Go to edit mode. I'm going to hold Alt, hold Shift. Where the wings are at, I'm just selecting that edge there. While holding Shift as well as Alt, I let go briefly just to move the screen. Now I'm going to hold Control B, hold Shift for fine selection. So now I have these extra edges here, right? So now I'm going to go back to object mode, turn back on the subdivision, turn back on the shrink wrap, and now we can see that it's much more prominent how that looks, like even before we apply normal maps or anything like that. Okay, what we're going to do now is put our UVs on. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to temporarily turn off the subdivision surface. We'll scroll down, we'll turn off the shrink wrap. We'll go to our upper left with our main retopology mesh selected. We'll go to edit mode. The first thing we want to do is grab this center line. So we're on edge select, that's good. We're going to hold Alt and then left click, and that let us grab this center line that went all around the entire body, which is excellent. Okay, so we have that center line selected. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold Control, press E. This brings up our edges menu, and then what we're going to do is go down to where we see this mark seam. So we're going to left click on mark seam, and now you can see there's a red line going around the center. Okay, that main seam did most of the work for us. We still have more seams to put in though, so I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Alt, left click, right where you saw me left click at. I'm going to hold Control, press E. We're going to select mark seam. We're going to put a seam around the wing. I'm going to hold Alt. That worked well, so we have that whole loop going around the wing. So we're going to hold Control, press E. This brings up our edges menu. We're going to select mark seam. We're going to hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button. Let's see, I'm going to hold Alt. It looks like we grabbed the whole seam around the arm, which is very good. So I'm going to hold Control, press E. This brings up our edges menu. We're going to select mark seam. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. We're going to hold Alt. So this time we didn't get all the way around the leg. We're going to hold Shift. I'm going to hold Control, press E, select mark seam. We want to make this easy for ourselves as we work. So what we can do is go to the upper left, which is face select. I'm going to hold Alt, left click on this loop of faces, press H to hide that loop. Because this is separated, I can hover here, press L, then press H to hide that part of the leg, so this should make it easier for us to work. I'll try to grab this loop here. I'll hold Alt, press H. See if we can do this again. Hold Alt, press H. Okay, that did grab the entire leg. Okay, so we're gonna hold Alt, press H to unhide everything. Then I'm gonna left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, UV unwrapping is a way of taking a 3D object and laying it out flat. So that's why we're putting the seams in this. So we have most of our major seams. I'm going to put a seam around the mouth, so I'm going to hold Alt. Oh, I need to go to Edge Select. So I'm going to go to the upper left, select Edge, hold Alt. When I select the edge, I select that entire loop. Because I have that whole loop selected, I'm going to hold Control, press E. This brings up our Edges menu. I'm then going to select Mark Seam. Okay, when you mark seams, one of the ways you can know that the seam is a good seam is if you go to the upper left, go to Face Select. Like there's a seam here for the wing, right? When I hover here and I press L, just like you see, this seam, if it's a good seam, will have it so that everything that's within that seam is selected when I press L. So with that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Shift, press H, and what this will do is hide everything other than what we currently have selected. Okay, with the wing being the only thing visible, what we're going to do is go to the upper left, go to the edge select. We're going to hold Alt, select this center scene, let go of Alt, hold Control, press E. This brings up our edges menu. We're going to select Mark Seam. I'm then going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm going to roll the mouse wheel back. I'm going to hold Alt, then press H, then left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to, with edge select on, I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to select this edge right here. I'm going to hold Control, press E. This brings up our edges menu. I'm going to select Mark Seam. I'm going to go to this edge right here, hold Alt. Hold Control, press E, select Mark Seam, and then left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Holding Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. And what I want to do is try to grab as best as I can this along the edge on the bottom here. So what I'm doing is I'm holding Control. Oh, I'm wrong. I made left click. I want to just try to select the bottom here. So I select it there. So I'm holding Control now. And Control lets me use the shortest path technique. Sometimes it's easier. Like right now, I guess just a Shift, select Shift. So I'll try using it here. And it didn't do what I wanted to do. I'm going to press C, and then hold the middle mouse button to deselect that. Right click to get out of Paint Select. Now I'm going to hold Shift. So I'm just manually selecting. All along the bottom here. I'm going to hold Control, press E, then select Mark Seam. Then I'm going to left click to deselect. Hold the middle mouse button. See, there's this. There it goes. It's hard to see. Push this down some. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, now we're going to do a similar thing here. I thought I had edge select. I'm selecting edge now. So this I am going to use the shortest path. So now I'm holding shift. I let go of control. It's interesting. Just holding shift. I'm trying to grab the flattest part of this mesh that would be placed on the ground. Holding shift. Take it back to here. I'll hold control, press E. I'm going to select mark seam. I'll left click to deselect. Holding control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I held control as well as the middle mouse button. Now I'm holding shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Now I'm going to hold shift as well as the middle mouse button. I'm going to hold alt, hold control, press E, and I'm just going right down along this geometry here. Hold control, press E, mark seam. I'm going to take away the manipulator. Hold alt, hold control. Press E, mark seam, alt, hold control, press E, mark seam. Holding alt, hold control, press E, mark seam. Hold alt, hold control, press E, mark seam. Holding alt. And that didn't work there, so I'm going to hold alt here, hold control, press E, mark seam, and left click to deselect. Holding alt, hold control, press E, mark seam, holding alt, hold control, press E, mark seam, holding alt, hold control, press E, mark seam. Take a wild guess what I'm going to do now. Yep. Hold control. Hold alt first, hold control, press E, mark seam. Hold alt, hold control, press E, mark seam. Hold alt. See, that one didn't go across, so I hold alt there. There we go. Hold control, press E, mark seam. Hold alt, 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 hold control, press E, mark seam. Oh, look at that. That's wrong what I just did. Wait a second. Hold control to zoom in. I believe what I did was I just marked sharp. Click off that. There we go. So hold control, press E. So if you make a mistake, like I marked sharp, so I can clear sharp. And I could do the same thing with a seam if I wanted to not have a seam selected. So I'm going to hold alt, hold control, press E, select mark seam. And mark sharp is when you're dealing with typically hard surface things. That's a way of making a corner have a hard edge or appear to have a hard edge. When hold Alt, hold Control, press E, mark seam. I left clicked on nothingness to deselect. I'll hold Alt A to totally deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, hold Control, press E, mark seam. Okay, when I roll the mouse wheel back, okay, with all of that done, what we should be able to do now is I'm going to hold Alt, press A to make sure nothing is selected. I'm going to go to the upper left, select object mode. I'm going to apply the mirror. I'm going to apply the subdivision surface. I'm going to apply the shrink wrap. So then when we come back to edit mode, we still have our seams, even though we applied those modifiers. And you can see if you look right now, if I press A to select everything, if you look, our triangles are 33,148. So we were aiming for, at least I was aiming for 30,000. So this is pretty good. The seams are going to allow us to take the rest of the detail from the sculpt and apply them to this retopology mesh. Okay, now that we have our seam set up, what we're going to do is go to the upper left. We're going to go to object mode. We have these tabs up here and there at the top. We don't have to use these tabs. We can just, set up everything ourselves. However, these tabs are here for us to make things easier. So we're going to select the UV editing tab. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the middle part of the screen here. Go to this face select. We're going to press A to select all of our geometry. Now we're going to press U to bring up our UV unwrapping menu, and then we're going to select unwrap. Okay, so over here you can see our UV unwrap, which is basically our dragon laid out flat. This looks like it came out pretty well. We're going to press A over here to select all of this. We're going to go to UV, and then we're going to go to minimize stretch. So we'll left click here. And you can see the mesh changing slightly. It's Blender trying to basically set up things so there's not distortion in the mesh. Now I left clicked. I'm pretty sure that makes it stop because I'm fine with how it looks right now. Okay, now that we have this UV laid out, what we need is an image to work with this. So what we're going to do is go to where we see this image, the word image I'm talking about. So I'm going to click there. I'm going to select new. And when I click there, this size of the image right here is 1024 pixels by 1024 pixels. I find that normal maps work very well with 4K texture. So I'm going to put in 4, and then I'm going to hold shift and then press 8, which is the times table. And then I'm going to press enter. And what that does is kind of does like a calculation figure. It being Blender calculates 4 times 1024. Nice feature there. So I'm going to press 4, hold shift, press 8, and then press enter. And now we have 4096 pixels by 4096 pixels. This turns out to be about 5 megs. It works out well though. So I'm going to name this normal map. And then I'm going to, this color can be changed here. It's fine how it is though. So I'm going to click OK. So now this screen got bigger because we made the image size bigger. Okay, so now that we have the image made, we need to save this image. So I'm going to go to image, and then I'm going to go down to save as, and I'm going to look for where I want to save this at. So it used to just show you, it being Blender used to show your PC. Now I'll just go to volumes and pick the main volume that I want to work with. I'm going to make a new folder. Today is the 23rd. So in this folder, I'm going to make another folder named Maps. And then I'm going to click Save as Image. Okay, now that all that was done, we're ready to set up to transfer the detail from our... I just left-clicked on nothing. When I left-clicked, when I don't have this selected, all the UV disappears. It's just because I'm not selected on there. But we're going to set up things to transfer the detail from the sculpt to the retopology mesh. So we're going to go to the upper screen. We're going to click on shading. And Blender tries to set things up to make it easy for us to shade. Okay, so our main work is going to be done down here. So with our retopology mesh clicked on, I'm going to click here, which is our material panel. I'm going to click New. I'm going to zoom back. Okay, when I zoom back, I just wrote my mouse wheel. I'm going to make this area here bigger. I'm finally going to rename this Retopology Mesh. And then I'm going to go to the sphere. I'm going to name this High Poly Mesh. Okay, and with the low poly mesh selected, I'm going to click New. Is that the low poly? Here we go. Mesh. There we go. Okay, so with this selected, gotta be careful of what you're selected on. Now I'm selected on low poly mesh. Now what we can do is click Add Texture. And what we want is an image texture. So here's that image texture right here. Now we want to select Add Vector. And you're going to see normal and normal map. You don't want the normal, you want the normal map. So I just left click to lock that in place. A lot of times Blender remembers what we worked on. So if we go to this arrow here, we can see there's our normal map. So we'll left click that. So the normal map came right in there. For the color space, we want to select non-color. Okay, so with that set up, now we need to go to we need to go to yes, this, and as far as I know, we need to bake in cycles. So we start off by default in Blender 2.8 in Eevee. We're gonna left click, and this puts us in the cycles rendering engine. Okay, so here in cycles, what we want to do is go to bake. This bake type by default is starts off saying combined. We want to click this and set this to normal. We then want to put a check mark next to selected to active. Okay, I'm going to scroll down. I think that we're good to go. So now we need to make sure that our high poly mesh is showing, we need to first click, it's important, first click the high poly mesh, hold shift, and then second, you want to select the low poly mesh. All right, now that's interesting. So I clicked off that, so my low poly mesh doesn't have the setup. So we'll go through it again. I must have put it on the high poly mesh. So it's add, texture, image texture. Blender remembers, so we'll click here. We'll select normal map. The color space is still set for non-color. We'll go to add, vector, not normal. We want normal map. And then what we need to do is have this needs to be selected. At least last time I baked, this had to be selected. The nodes don't have to be connected other than the principled shader to the material output. However, this needs to be selected. You can tell it's selected because it has a highlight going around it. So now we click the high poly mesh first, hold shift, and then second we click the low poly mesh. And now I'm letting go of shift. Okay, one thing that is extremely important that I almost forgot. When you look at this selected to active, you want to click this triangle here and you'll see this ray distance. This ray distance is extremely important to having your normal map work correctly. The settings tend to work good for me when they're between 0.5 or 0.8. For now, we're going to set this ray distance to 0.8, and then I'll press enter to lock that in. Okay, now with all that set up, I'm just going to make sure, again, I have the high poly mesh selected. This is what you have to have selected. I was clicking this low poly mesh. It's actually this. So first, I have the high poly mesh selected. Now I'm holding shift, and then second, selecting the retopology mesh. Now I'm letting go of shift, and you can see like the retopology mesh is intersecting with the high poly mesh, and that's what you want. So now I am left clicking on this normal map, so the normal map node is highlighted. Okay, I had some issues in between the video. One thing we can do to deal with that is we're going to go to the high poly, we're going to hide that. We're going to select our retopology mesh. We're going to go to layout. We're going to go to view, viewport or viewpoint front view. We're going to press the N key. We're going to go to edit. We're going to select auto mirror, and we're going to select auto mirror. So now if I go to the upper left and I go into edit mode, you can see that we have a mirror on this. If you don't see auto mirror, if you go to edit preferences, you can look in add-ons. You can put a check mark next to auto mirror. What I'm going to do now is go to the UV editing, and I'm going to just quickly select everything, press U, and then unwrap. So here is our unwrap of our mesh that has a mirror modifier on it. So it's effectively half of the mesh. Okay, so with this UV, very quickly, we're going to press A to select everything. We're going to go to UV, and then we're going to go down to minimize stretch, just like we did before. And then I'm going to left click to come out of that. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the shading tab. And for the most part, everything should be the same as before. We're going to make sure we can see the high poly mesh. We're going to select that first, hold shift. While holding shift, we're going to second select this retopology mesh. We have our normal map selected. We have bake normal set up. We have our check mark next to selected to active. Our ray distance is 0.8. 0.5 to 0.8 normally works well. So with all of that done, we're going to click on bake. Okay, the normal map is here. You can still see there's some issues with the discoloration. We're going to click these. We're going to click these three lines. We're going to go to Image, Save As. I want to. This is some work from before. I'm just going to click and save this over. Normal mapped baked. Click Save As Image. And then with that done, I am going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to deselect the high poly. I'm going to select the retopology mesh. Okay, now I'm going to go from the image texture, which is named normal map, to color. And then I'm going to go from the normal map out of normal to normal. Okay, now I'm going to go to layout. We can see here is our low poly mesh. When we turn on the viewport shading, the look dev menu, you can see, let's change the lighting. I'm going to hold shift, press A, go to light. I'm going to bring up 3-point lighting. And that is an add-on that's built into Blender, by the way, 3-point lighting. That's interesting. I'll press Shift D, press G. Does not seem to be making any difference, so I'm actually going to get rid of those lights. Hold Shift D. Not sure why. Okay, we can see our mesh there. These are lights I brought in. Didn't work. Shift D. And basically what you're looking at now is the low poly mesh. And I'm just duplicating some lights. Put a light on this side. Yeah, the normal map worked. The issue I was having before is, I said in between the videos, or in between video takes, I guess it would be, is one side of the normal map was working correctly, and the other side of the normal map did not seem to be working correctly. I'm gonna hold Shift D, slide down, and it was strange. So I mirrored the geometry, so there was no issue with that anymore. Okay, I'm gonna click on the retopology mesh, change the color. Okay, my wife Sue just told me, or kind of directed me towards lighting that makes this look much better. So what we're going to do, so you can see this better, is we're going to change the render engine to Eevee, and then we're going to go to the viewport shading, or the look dev view. We're going to take away those check marks. We're going to click and then select this view right here, the lighting for that. I'm then going to go to the material editor and pick a color where it's easier for you to see some of the details in our mesh. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm going to hold Alt, press H, So we unhid the high poly mesh. So now I'm going to take that high poly mesh, push that to the side. Select this. I'm going to re-hide that. Okay, I'm going to select the high poly mesh. Put some color on that. Okay, so now you see the two meshes side by side. Looking at these two meshes, can you tell which one, or do you think you would be able to tell which one was the high poly one and which model was the low poly model? Okay, so this is the high poly model. I'm going to change the color. So this is the high poly model. So when we go to the upper left, we go into edit mode. You can see the density of the mesh when I press A to select the geometry. If you look over to the right, if you look beneath my mouse and to the right, you'll see that this mesh is made up of 1,229,372 triangles. Okay, I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to go to the upper right. I'm going to go back to object mode. Now I'm going to select the low poly mesh. Then I'm going to go back to the upper left. And then I'm going to go to edit mode for this. And when you look beneath my mouse and over to the right, you can see that this is made up of 16,804 triangles. And granted, this is only technically half of a mesh since it has a mirror on it, so it would be doubled to a little more than 30,000. But yes, you can see just by looking at the mesh how simplistic this mesh is compared to the other mesh. So I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to go back to the upper left and go back to object mode. Okay, so there you have it. You have the high poly mesh here that is over 1 million triangles, and you have this mesh here that with its mirrored side is 16,000. If it was unmirrored, would be over 30,000, but not much over 30,000. Okay guys, that's it for the tutorial. For all of those of you out there who like the videos on this channel and reshare them, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who are new to this channel, if you like the videos on this channel and you would like to see more, please subscribe, and thank you for viewing.